It's February 10th, and it's the 10th day of trying to post a video every day. And I'm doing pretty good so far, but I'm starting to run out of ideas. So today I'm just going to talk about something I can talk about extemporaneously, which is a subject called the Three Prajnas in Buddhism. The Three Prajnas are a way of approaching spiritual life. How do you learn about Buddhism? How do you learn about meditation? The Three Prajnas are typically listening, contemplating, and meditating. Although I prefer slightly different translations. The first one I'd prefer study, contemplation, and integration, and I'll explain why. So the first one is listening, and I think typically there is an emphasis on listening to teachers, listening to lectures, hearing the Dharma. But I think what's really important for the first prajna is actually getting mentally engaged. And I think in English and in the West, when we're talking about really getting engaged, understanding the terms, it's really people are talking about studying. If you're talking about listening, you might say, I'm going to listen to that song, but you wouldn't, unless you're a music student, you wouldn't necessarily study the song. So it's a level of engagement that you might say, if you're listening to music, you're a music student. If you're listening to the Dharma, you're listening to a Dharma talk, you're listening to some subject. The first thing is to collect the information, but to engage it, to memorize. What you want to do is actually learn all of the ludicrous number of lists, the Four Noble Truths, the Three Prajnas, the Eightfold Path, the 6 Paramitas, the 10 Bhumis. You just learn all of these things. The 4 thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma. Learn what all of those mean. Not only memorize them, but also understand why. And the way that this works in Tibetan Buddhism is that each sadhana that you do has some number of these things. For example, in the Chinrezi sadhana, the 6 realms is really an important aspect of that. And memorizing the 6 realms, understanding what the primary suffering is in that realm, and understanding the cause of that suffering in that realm is a really important aspect of practicing Chinrezi. And so in order to practice that sadhana, you'll want to understand those subjects, not just have heard them once and have a vague understanding, but actually memorize all those things and be able to engage them during the practice. So having done that, there's another phase, which is contemplation, the second prajna. And here you are intellectually engaging in reflection. So in contemplative Christianity, meditation and contemplation are switched from the way that they're talked about in Buddhism. But here, contemplation is like a mental effort. So the sorts of things that you might contemplate are things such as impermanence. You might contemplate, the interconnected nature of phenomena. You might contemplate karma and these sorts of things. You want to really contemplate how those things apply to your life. Obviously, things like impermanence are central to suffering, fear, anxiety. So don't just listen, but engage in contemplation. And that isn't to say that this is what meditation is. And so the third prajna, which is usually called meditation, is what what I've heard actually is translated better as integration. And so you have successfully memorized and listened and engaged and studied with the Dharma. Some of that you want to contemplate, and some of it you may need to integrate the ideas. Integration or meditation is an umbrella term for just not paying lip service to a thing, but actually doing it. And that might look differently between, if you are trying to integrate into your being like a calm, abiding nature. So you might learn a lesson from Shanti Deva to make like a log, or you might hear not to be reactionary, but these sorts of things, you can't just do it because you hear it. You need to also sit down and calm down your nervous system. And so doing practices such as calm abiding meditation can help with that. If you hear about concepts of emptiness, you can study the concept of emptiness. You can study the concepts of shunyata. You can contemplate these subjects as well. But then at some point you need to meditate and integrate those concepts into your actual experience. And so I think the thing that makes integration important is working these subjects into your experience, into your daily experience, into your meditation sessions. Generally speaking, I think of meditation and integration as what you do after you've read a subject, you've thought about it a little bit, and now you sit on the cushion and you integrate it. And there are various practices that exist so that it's not just an intellectual exercise, but you're actually working it into your being. And so you can read about being virtuous, or maybe even a particular virtue, such as generosity. And then you can contemplate generosity in terms of either thinking about the ways in which you are not generous, or thinking about the ways that you could be more generous, right? This is like a contemplation. And then an integration might be actually being more generous, and or mentally practicing again and again and again, visualizing the act of generosity to the point where it actually changes the way that you exist. I remember one time when I was doing some generosity practices, which include sort of building up a visualization and then breaking it down. And I went to a Dharma center once and was feeling very, we had just done this, morning of meditation, and then it was time to have some cookies. So I put all the cookies in this like beautiful design, and I was making it as an offering. And then I started to just throw it away, because part of the practice is just letting the visualization dissolve. And I realized, like, okay, at that moment, like, it had made its way into my body. Like I almost didn't even think about it. It was like, okay, I constructed this and now I'm giving it away. And that's the kind of integration that you want to do. Whatever, whether it's a discipline or virtues, like abstaining from things, you want to contemplate things to the point where the idea of doing something negative is just totally you have revulsion towards negative activity, and that you have joy when just the thought of virtue comes up, and in that way, then the whole thing becomes natural. So yeah, the 3 prajnas: listening, contemplating, and meditating, or studying, contemplating, and integration, are a really important subject for anybody who's serious about learning about Buddhism, because you don't want to get stuck in any one of those 3. What you want to do is balance the 3 prajnas. The danger is that let's say that you jump straight to integration. The question is, what are you integrating? Let's say you spend all your time just listening to the Dharma. You may become very knowledgeable, but it wouldn't have penetrated your core. If you spend a lot of time, let's say, contemplating, then you might sort of become, actually, that's not too bad. But yeah, if you spend a lot of time contemplating but not studying, right? Like, what is it? Maybe it's not bringing you in a particular direction. And if you don't integrate that, then maybe it becomes a very intellectual exercise. If you just do study, contemplate, you never integrate. That means that you're never becoming that person. So I hope this presentation has been helpful. See you tomorrow.